left, right.
Yo, what's up? Thank you for joining us. Today we have James, the Boswell Boswell as always, and we have his younger brother David Boswell, who I'm enjoying having on. This is episode 86. We're following up a little on the consent episode because it ran really long, and James and I wanted to get our word in otherwise, but we're doing a little bit of that, so enjoy the episode. We'll be recapping the last year of coronavirus. So listen, let me know what you think. Let us know if we missed anything. I will see you guys on the other end. This is SipTalk. Grab a drink and enjoy.
Of course it's Phil.
Cheers.
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 All right, looks like we are live. I can see you guys on the internet. I can also see you through Zoom, which is something I was thoroughly
Which is
unfamiliar
also
with.
through the internet.
Sure, but it's not an internet I was familiar with prior to coronavirus. Maybe net meeting I had, but not.
Did you
Not
say a
Zoom.
series of tubes?
Yes.
That's one of my favorite old school references.
All right, guys, we're live across all platforms. This is episode 86 of SipTalk. We're joined today by David Boswell, a political scientist out of California, Sacramento, to be exact. James the Bosnator Boswell out of South Carolina, philosopher, bartender, accountant, professional referee, man of many trades. My name is Justin DiGiulio. I'm a man of fewer trades, real estate agent in New York City. This is a bit of a follow-up podcast from our last one where we talked about consent. We brought on a guest, great guest, very spirited guest, Nicole Feliciano, and she represented the female perspective. So we're going to dissect a little bit of that conversation, and we're going to talk. We're about the 1 year mark of the anniversary of when coronavirus really forced its way into our lives. I think mid-March.
Speaking of consent,
2020, without consent, it entered our lives, and now we're fucked. We're just dealing with it. It's a new normal, which is a phrase I've actually outlined in my notes that I hate. The new normal. But let's start off with some drinks. This is Sip Talk. James, you're on the top of the screen. What are you drinking?
still sticking with the Busch Ice.
Oh,
I'm
man.
going to put a good portion of my stimulus check towards stocking my new bar, though.
I think that's a great idea. Speaking of stimulants, I don't really have much to mix with, so I'm mixing with some workout sauce here. It's actually not a pre-workout, nor is it a stimulant, but it tastes good, and it's going to go with tequila. So
That's a bold strategy, Cotton. See if it pays off.
I'm drinking tequila and some CLA and carnitine in the Arctic Ice flavor.
Please don't ever become a bartender.
Arctic Ice really is.
Or personal trainer.
If you ever go to the Arctic and you lick the ice, it's definitely going to taste like blueberries, just for the record. And David, what are you drinking over there in sunny California?
I'm indulging in some luxurious Ep.86 bourbon. But I did actually get a very nice bottle of Glenlivet 14. What is it? It is a Cabernet cask, I think, that they did it in.
Glenlivet Kevin Reserve.
Yeah, Glenlivet Kevin Reserve. That was a present that one of my buddies got me this weekend. We were celebrating my last week's birthday.
Well, very nice. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
And the Glenlivet sounds wonderful. I would definitely drink that first if you were going to start drinking rather than second to the Evan Williams.
No, I'm not doing that on a Thursday night. That's a special drink. You don't.
And that's my point. I wouldn't have started. I didn't think you were going to drink it tonight, but
No.
My advice was don't start with the Evan Williams and then go to the good stuff.
Wait, so we got Schweppes going into the tequila and carnitine?
That's it. So yeah, I got tequila, CLA and carnitine, and some seltzer water. So,
do you have some ice?
No, there's no ice, but I'm in the
Ooh.
basement. I'm in the basement. It's freezing. Everything down here is like ice cold anyway. So
This is the saddest cocktail.
it's not that bad, and it could get you fucked up. So look, guys, I wanna start. Should we start with coronavirus and the last 12 months, or should we start with the recap of the last episode?
I would say recap for
Yeah, I think
continuity.
it's probably smartest to get a recap, but I also feel like we have a lot to say about the last episode. And as I mentioned, Nicole was very spirited, and she was making good points. But I don't know necessarily that we were disagreeing with her, but I think that we weren't really meshing up on a couple of things. Slightly different perspective on opinion, but we were in the same line. That we had outlined some things when it comes to consent that you just don't do. Where it fell apart was the message that you send to other people based off what you're doing. And I'll give you
Well,
an example.
specifically what you're wearing and the message that it sends. That even if you don't think it's sending a certain message, you have to be aware that a lot of people in the public might draw their own conclusions just by looking
Well,
at you.
I had a
But
conversation.
I can see how that gets into a slippery slope, though, of how that leads to victim blaming, which isn't what your intent was.
No,
but you can see how that progresses fairly.
I think
smoothly.
but I also I don't think we were trying to victim blame. I think we were trying to figure out where that line is crossed and get as close to it as possible and still draw a very sharp line that, it's acceptable, but there's certain things you just don't do. And somebody may be a victim, but they didn't bring them on themselves. No matter what they did, the other person is still 100% at fault and never should have done that.
Well, from what was explained to me about it is, again, who you think you might have the better chances with. That doesn't change your behavior. So you have the woman who is getting off of work and she's in her business attire, and you have someone else who's dressed up to the nines like they're going out to a club. Who do you think is more likely to want to have a conversation? It doesn't mean you have a different conversation, but of the two, who do you think is more likely to respond to you?
Well, I think it really, let's backtrack a little bit. And when it comes to attention and sexual attention, the person who's dressed more provocatively is going to demand a higher amount of attention. Now, should men act on it? I would say 95% of the time the answer is no. But what I think James and I were trying to get the point across was the majority, if in that 5% of the time that men should act, but even in all the time when they shouldn't act, they're acting more in the case of the person who's dressed more provocatively. And not that that person shouldn't have the right to dress provocatively, but they should be aware of how they're affecting the people around them. It's a weird thing to articulate, I feel like, but
it is. It's dicey.
Well,
I'm
it's
fine.
really hard to state our opinion in a way that doesn't end in a conclusion of victim blaming.
Well, but here's when somebody can go walk around topless in New York City. I'm probably not going to walk up to them and be like, "You want to get fucked?" Okay, that's not nor would I want to sleep with them, but probably because they're obviously walking around, they're probably a little crazy. But I think what happens is there are the crazy people that just assume that person wants to get some ass, and then they go up and they put their hands on them and they do things they shouldn't. That's, obviously we know that's a bad thing, and irregardless of what the other person is doing, there's lines you don't cross as a guy or as a girl. But
well, I still think that your analogy about like someone wearing like a Trump red hat and them getting a different reaction from people than if they weren't wearing that hat, even if because everyone's going to see that hat and it's going to have different meanings to everybody. Some people are going to have a negative reaction to it, whereas if they weren't wearing that hat, they wouldn't have had any reaction at all because there's no hat. And so, like, if you're wearing a Trump red hat, you have to be aware that you're wearing something that sends a clear message to people. What that message means to you doesn't matter because other people are going to take whatever message they want from it.
I think that's where we're running into the issue because they're saying, well, the message I'm trying to send is the real message, and that's what should matter. I had a conversation with an agent today about a text message that he sent to he was a more superior agent, and he sent a message to another agent who's basically in his charge. And I said, well, you shouldn't have sent that. This is how how she received it. This is what she thought when you sent it. And he said, well, that's not what I was saying. I said, but that's how she received it. So you have to understand how people are going to receive something. You have to understand how other people perceive you. It doesn't matter what you want to say. Do you get a job if you go to the interview and you say everything wrong, but you wanted to say something better? No, it matters what the other people think
That'd
about
be a
you.
great thing to say at the end of the interview.
So obviously I said everything, that I needed to get the job. So you're going to give me the job, right? No, you just muttered throughout the entire interview. We didn't even understand what you were saying. I think
I meant to say the right things.
But it doesn't matter what you meant to say. It's how we perceived it. And I think where we're falling apart here is that you can't control the perception of others. Should others put their hands on you? Should others put their hands on you and touch you and catcall and things like that? No, obviously. I don't think the catcalling is as bad as somebody walking up and grabbing your ass.
Still, no, but
it's in that realm. But I would say
we're not defending it.
No, I don't think we're defending it, but I'm saying it's not as bad as, just like driving 5 over the speed limit isn't the same as driving 35 over the speed limit. But depending where you are, if you're in a school zone, 5 over the speed limit could be bad, I guess. But yeah, it's the perception of others of what you're doing. And I think that's where we had the breakdown in the conversation, that no matter what you want to say or you believe that you're saying, what's happening in reality, and by reality, I mean, you are not the center of the world. So literally everything that's going on around you, that's where it really matters, in my opinion. And she didn't think anybody should be treated differently for the way they dress. And I said, well, that's not something that anyone can control.
It's not realistic.
It's not a realistic expectation. And we kind of went off the rails, and I don't think I think we were all on the same page, but we weren't connecting on that level. So that was a tough one for James and I. But Nicole made a lot of very good points, and she definitely brought some female perspective to it, because James and I don't walk around in high heels, and David, I don't think you do either.
Once a week.
That's another episode.
But
it's really just what I want to impress my bosses.
Am I missing anything here about that episode?
Well, I think what you wanted to do that we didn't have time for was go through those second set of scenarios that were a little bit more complicated about consent.
Well, let me see. I don't know if I have them anymore actually on the computer. But
fire the research team.
Yeah, let me
the garbage.
Let me see what I got here. So just hang tight. I'm blocking the view here. But yeah, I think the consent scenarios were where we wanted to dive a little deeper, and that's like, is it ever okay to catcall someone, or and what exactly is catcalling? Like, you see somebody across the street, you want to get their attention. I've heard from different women that they're happy that a guy stopped them on the street for whatever reason, because it showed that guy was very confident, and I don't think he did it in like a assholey way, but I've heard that as not a terrible thing. I'm running into issues in terms of finding.
Have you ever been aggressively hit on by a guy, Justin?
I don't know that aggressively would be appropriate, but I have been in I've been hit on by men. I live in New York City.
Well, here's go ahead, Derek.
I meant aggressive for a reason, because when guys hit on me, that doesn't bother me one little bit. But if I'm just trying to go about my night and it keeps happening over and over, the same person especially, it's like, dude, I've told you I'm not interested. Take the hint. And then it escalates like, I can see why. I'm just here to dance. Leave me alone. Same thing. I'm just trying to walk down the street. I'm getting a coffee. Why are you trying to sexualize me as an item?
I understand. I do understand exactly what you're talking about. It's never been bad, but I understand. I can empathize with women, because I get a lot of weird DMs. I get just unwanted attention sometimes that's too much, and I'm just like, holy shit, like women have to deal with this all the time.
All the time.
So yeah, I get that, and it sucks. And again, that I reduce in my mind to the fact that we're just all animals, and some of us like suck at this
Well,
game of dating.
one piece of advice I've given to men who have trouble empathizing with women, and this is for straight men, is I say, if you want to understand what it's like to be in a woman's shoes in a bar, go by yourself to a gay bar and just go sit at the bar and have a drink and don't initiate conversation with anybody else, and see how it feels to be a straight guy in a gay bar by yourself.
Yeah,
And that's what it's like to be a woman in a bar all the time. Is
not
every
just in a
time
bar, not just in a bar.
True.
Just all the time.
True.
Yeah,
Yeah, just
all
that's
the
what it's like to feel like a woman all the time, where you're gonna have guys coming up and starting a conversation with you, and you're going to immediately from word one wonder, is this guy just trying think that he has a chance with
But
me or something?
I'm just thinking about it. Like guys do so much weird shit. Like they just
Mhm.
they like they're like and they'll like get up from where they are and then like go sit right in front of you, but not say anything ever. Like I watch guys like see a hot girl get on the train, and they go from where they are and they go sit right in front of her and just stare at her for 14 minutes, and then either she gets off or he gets off, and nothing happens. But it's just like weird shit. Like I think this is
I thought you
my
said
play.
they both got off.
Here's my play. Like
What
I'm
was
not-
your plan?
that's the point. But it's just they just do weird shit. Like guys do weird shit. And it sucks. Like it sucks to live. Men suck. Like if you've been to men suck in many, many ways. Women are definitely the superior sex. All right. But we need each other. All right. But if you've been to a men's restroom, or if you've been to a single dude's house versus a single girl's house, like these are completely different things. Women have their shit together.
Not always.
Well, not always, but I would say for the most part, men are just weird, and women, like, for the sake of the species and for the continued existence of us, like you kind of got to deal with us, and you'd think that with time the weird dudes would kind of cease to exist, but I don't know
No.
what's keeping them around.
It's the Lek paradox. It's the one thing Darwinian evolution can't explain, is if a male is supposed to be attracted to the females, then he should only reproduce males that look that way, because that's selection. But somehow we still keep getting the incels. I don't know how.
Yeah.
Also gay people.
Well, yeah.
Until recently, they weren't able to reproduce on their own. Lately, they can, because in vitro, and they have donors and they have surrogates, and that's awesome, and I'm very much in support of that. But gay people have been around a lot longer than we've had the technology for artificial insemination.
Also, ugly people. You'd think that would just kind of weed itself out.
Nah, that's magnetism and desperation.
Look, it's
right.
either me or nobody.
You got me. Danny DeVito and who?
I don't remember. It was Sold.
But I don't know. It's just, am I missing anything on consent? Because I wanted to. That was a long podcast, and I don't remember every point that was made, but I do remember kind of where we fell apart towards the end.
It was the red hat.
It was the red hat, and I think I that was a bad example for me to give to that particular person, because she had a certain feeling about Trump and Trump politics, which are insane. But
She wasn't wrong about her opinion. I agreed with her opinion on Trump and everything like that, but like the problem was that she couldn't separate her opinion from Trump from the analogy that we were trying to draw.
yeah, and true. But also, I think she was very much rooted in the women's rights side of, women should be able to do whatever. And
Yes,
we were
they
saying,
should.
well, people should be able to wear whatever they want. And if it happens to be a Trump hat, then it's a Trump hat. And she said, well, that means so much more. And it means a lot of very bad things. Whereas a woman wearing a sports bra to the grocery store doesn't mean bad things. And I think that's where the analogy didn't quite
Yeah, but and I think
sync up.
like in our kind of debrief off the air, we talked about like the point that I tried to raise was that actions have consequences and you have to be aware that whatever you do affects other people. So whether it's a woman wearing a sports bra to the grocery store or a man or a woman wearing a red hat in public, it's you have to understand that what you're doing affects other people and there might be a reaction to it. Now, that reaction may be rational or irrational or justified or unjustified, but there are certain behaviors that you can undertake that are going to either increase or decrease the likelihood of other people reacting in certain ways.
And that shouldn't crimp your lifestyle. You should still be able to go out the door and say and wear, for the most part, what you want to, but you still have to be aware of how it's,
Well, and you have to accept the consequences of the choices that you make.
Well, in the same vein that if you're wearing a sports bra to the grocery store, you don't want to be hit on by some random dude. If you're wearing a Trump hat and you go out, you don't want to be randomly accosted by someone who's so, and I would say righteously so, opposed to Trump's policies, but then they go and, swipe the hat off your head. Like, no, violence and touching is never cool.
I think that's like where there's this huge, I don't know what, and there's certain people that are going to commit gun violence. Is there a certain gene you think that maybe makes people like they don't see this barrier? I don't think it's a gene, but it might be. It's like you're okay with punching an Asian person in the face, but you wouldn't be okay with shooting up a church, right? Or you're okay with shouting at an Asian person in the street. Now, you wouldn't go shoot up a church or shoot up a massage parlor full of Asian people. But for the rest of us, those are very close to each other. They're not that far apart.
Can I answer your question indirectly?
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, James, give it a shot.
Well, they've done studies on like of liberals and conservatives of their actual brain brain anatomy in terms of the size of certain areas of the brains and everything.
Yeah.
And what they found is, and it's a correlation. It's not caused, but they found that people that identify as conservative tend to have like a larger area of the brain that responds to fear and those kinds of signals. And people that are more self-identified as liberal tend to have like larger areas of the brain that's open to new experiences. So there is probably some neurochemical or brain physiology that can explain some of the differences between why somebody goes left or right politically, is that they respond to different stimuli in different way in markedly different ways.
Yeah.
So
but that doesn't I mean, we're not saying, a lot of liberals have done some crazy shit too. You have the people marching for Black Lives Matter, and I mean, we don't know which
Black
of
Lives
those
Matter didn't kill people though.
No, but a lot of these guys put a rock through or a brick through a window or something. Supposedly,
no, there was definitely property damage because of the riots.
But then they're also saying that there were right-wing people that joined these groups to put a brick through the window to make
just like they said there were left-wing people that joined the Capitol insurrection. So you can't really trust the messaging either way there.
But my real question is though, is that there's a certain line that the majority of people would not cross, and that's shouting racist things at anyone of any race, specifically, Chinese or Asian. Right now, people are going to shout some racist stuff in the middle of the street, and then also they're going to up the ante and do other things as well. And I think that there's a line for the most of us that we're just like, that's fucking insane. That and to the point where we would maybe even attack the person that's verbally accosting the person in the street. But I'm really curious, like what it is that, are these people predisposed to stuff like this, or
it's learned?
I'm sure some of it's learned, but also like you have certain constraints that you don't break, and that's the weird shit. But let's get into the Corona stuff, because I actually feel like there's some correlation here with things that have changed over the last year. And we started talking about Black Lives Matter. We're talking about some anti-Asian stuff that's going on right now. And that's that's really not a whole. Black Lives Matter wasn't a enormous movement before. What was it? June last year?
Last week of May.
Last week in May, yeah. So it was late May, June, where it really became a big movement. And then anti-Asian, whatever's going on, that really ramped up. I was thinking when Trump was saying China virus instead of, or Gina virus instead of,
Or Kung flu.
yeah, like
Also, the Wuhan virus, continuing to reference it by location, which is just not helpful.
correct. And then people being cooped up in their apartments and their houses, and then whatever anger or anxiety or whatever it is inside of them is just kind of growing and steaming, and then they find an outlet and they take it out. But I'm curious if, because we talked about a little bit, I guess, David, you were in on conversation with James about the topic of what's changed in the last year. What do you guys think are some of the biggest things? I got a whole list. So, because
The biggest thing for me would just be the prevalence of people working from home. When I moved out here, a lot of my good friends, they worked remote 100% of the time. They'd have some field visits here and there. And I was so jealous because I had this annoying commute, half an hour one way, an hour back because traffic sucked. And then we were out in North Carolina at our grandma's funeral, which was so weird because this was March 6th. The shutdowns were just starting to be talked about. And we had to get out of there real damn quick afterwards because they said, hey, anyone who doesn't live here, you can't be here because you're putting people at risk. And it was this whole thing where we had to negotiate a contract with them about how much we'd have to pay to keep the stuff there until we were allowed back onto the premises to move everything out. I just remember my previous temp contract ended and a new one contacted. They said, hey, it's a little bit less money. It's up in the email said the location was Rose. I was like, look, I'm not looking to do a longer commute for less money. I'll just roll the dice and not take. Oh, well, it's 100% remote. It's like, you
no
should have
commute.
led with. You should have led with that.
yeah,
You're not good at your job. I'll take it.
yeah. Well, and
Now I work remote, which
The
has
re-
its pros and cons.
the remote thing for me hasn't really happened because I need to be in the field,
Yeah.
and showing, even if my clients are remote, I still need to be in the field for the most part. But also, I manage the office, so being that it's my office, everybody else can go home, but I'm the one that has to stay to keep things going in the background. But because people were working remotely, and because many people commute into Manhattan for work, and they were no longer commuting into Manhattan, that really affected my business. A lot of people didn't want to be paying these crazy high rent prices. They didn't want to be doing this commute, so my business evaporated literally in the second week in March. We saw a steep slowdown, and I almost didn't believe it at the time. Like, yeah, well, people do crazy shit. Like, it's going to come back, and then it still hasn't come back.
Approximately, what was your decline in gross receipts from like April of 2019 to April of 2020? 5%.
Maybe I was going to say 70, but no, maybe 60 or so, maybe 60. But we lost our whole summer. Summer is busy for us. So the fact that is 60-70% of our business overall, and that wasn't there. But I would say at least 70% of the business probably just wasn't there. I was looking at our transaction count for the year so far in 2021, and we're not even to like where we were in week 2 of February in 2020.
So you're a full month behind.
Yeah, and
It's like still 33%.
and the amount, the dollar amount of the deals that we're doing is much smaller because the rent prices have dropped so much. So just a huge hit on the business. James, what do you think is the biggest thing that's affected you?
Well, I've got a joke response first.
Okay, thank you for prepping us for that.
Well, I just think that coronavirus might have been one of the best things to ever happen to ugly people, because now they have an excuse to go around covering up half their face all the time.
advise him against this.
Yeah. That's not nice, first off. But I mean, if you have some pretty jacked up teeth, like you got it good for a little while.
Well,
Eh,
I told him no, because I'm sorry, I can see it in your eyes. I don't need to see the full face. I just,
yeah, but that's somebody with a lazy eye, like by all accounts, like they should wear
yeah,
sunglasses.
I'm more into the lazy. No, after my last relationship, the biggest warning sign is spite and anger. Like that makes a person ugly to me, and you can see that
Well,
with the mask on.
I
yeah.
think David makes a very good point. Physical attractiveness really isn't the most important thing. Although I will say it is the door to a relationship in most cases.
It's important.
So it is an important thing. You can't ignore it. But I think
Not the end all be all.
there's a lot more to it, like character, depth of character, and personality, things like that. So
That's my joke answer. My
okay.
serious
So what's your real
answer
answer?
is that I think, especially when we shut down and you couldn't go out to bars, you couldn't go out to restaurants, you really couldn't be out in public with the exception of going to the grocery store. And even when you were in the grocery store, they had limited capacity. So, like, everybody was spread out and just being discouraged from being social. I think even the people who are on the lower end of the spectrum of wanting to be social realized how important it is to be able to just be in groups and interact, and it was something that we had never thought could be taken away from us in the way that coronavirus did. But just the social distancing and limited capacities, I think, really was a double whammy, because you had people going through economic hardship because they lost their jobs or their business was going under because they couldn't sell anything because their business was shut down, or they had friends or family that were either very sick, dying, or dead. And if they had somebody in the hospital, they couldn't even go into the hospital to be in the same room as them to help them through it. They
Pretty
couldn't see
wild.
the last time that a lot of these people ever saw their loved ones was when they were dropping them off in front of the ICU because they couldn't even walk in, or through a crappy iPad with a shitty Wi-Fi connection and like a video chat to say their last words to somebody.
If you were lucky.
Yeah. And then if they died, you couldn't hold a funeral because that's a group gathering, so you couldn't even commiserate with other people that love this person as much as you did. And I think that between all the hardships that coronavirus brought on, like, kind of just a face level, hidden behind that, it knocked out the social support that we had all come to depend on, and we didn't realize how important it was until it was taken away.
Well, James, thank God. Grandma died on what? March 6th? March 4th? Grandma died on March 4th. We were able to go. I was able to fly out there for the funeral. We were all able to be there, but they were able to bus out some of her friends and neighbors from the retirement community in which she lived. Fast forward 2 weeks, that wouldn't have happened.
No.
Oh, that's true. That's true. But I think James, what you were getting to, my first note actually, is that Zoom is not acceptable. That not everything can be done remotely. And yeah, like it's great that we discovered this technology. We'll probably continue to do, even when life is back to normal, we'll probably continue to do podcasts like this because we can do it. But we're not going to forego hanging out and traveling because we have Zoom. And the in person and the camaraderie of being together and being able to touch somebody or to hug them. I think that's really, really important. And I think that needs to return very fast for people to be able to fully recover.
For me, I've already said this, but I think it's something that we didn't realize how important it was to us until it was taken away.
Yeah. Well, that is very true. But I mean, a lot of it was bullshit that was happening. I think I knew when they shut us down for 2 weeks that it was going to be longer than 2 weeks. I just watched a bunch of old clips of the news, and you have Trump saying it's going to be a tough 2 weeks, but we'll get through it. And
yeah, it'll be gone by Easter, which was in like a month.
And him saying it's just going to go away. It's just going to go away. and literally he did very little. But that first shutdown, especially in New York State, where we shut down, and it was this week. I think it was like the 20th or the 22nd or something, where all businesses had to completely stop. Maybe it was the 16th. I don't remember exactly.
Close enough. Doesn't matter.
But yeah, it's end of the second week of into the third week of March last year, and all this shit just happened. And I'm thinking, like, one, we should have taken action weeks ago, and we wouldn't be having to do it this extreme. But also the rhetoric that was being used, like shelter in place, and
So like natural disaster.
Well, we
like
went-
Right. Like, there's a
we
hurricane
skipped-
coming. Shelter in place.
we skipped over dealing with this rationally and being precautious, and the president basically told people to ignore it, and then we dealt with it like it was we were in the middle of a hurricane, like there was an active shooter on the loose. And the way the media also dealt with it, the media dictated a lot of what happened and where people's minds were.
Do you
And
remember trying to buy toilet paper a year ago?
I was watching videos on that too. I was wondering,
People are clearly shitting their pants over this because I cannot explain the lack of toilet paper otherwise. They
Well-
did buy food. Eventually, they cleared out the rest of the shelves, but
but
there
I
was
mean,
so
I'm
much
wondering
toilet
if
paper.
I wonder if those
Not-
people still have a shit ton of toilet paper because they stocked up on it, or if they just were rational and they bought too much and they didn't buy any more. But I have a feeling that those people literally have like bomb shelter of toilet paper and canned goods probably right now.
Well, those two go hand in hand.
I made a bomb shelter out of the toilet paper. It's a little toilet paper for it.
What did you raid Costco before everybody else could?
I saw an opening.
Slap a piece of loose leaf paper on it that says "No girls allowed."
Yeah, but look, so a lot of stuff though
Never a problem.
is going to be.
I don't need the sign.
They know.
So, but a lot of stuff is going to be changed for a long, long time. You know, my thinking. Again, I was kind of spitballing some notes here, but you know, have you been to a place that's got a bunch of chairs lined up, like a DMV or a doctor's office, and they have like every 5 chairs are like X'd off, like you can't sit in these chairs, so that you're forced to be spaced out?
Yeah, that's all over the
Oh,
place.
Yeah.
Instead of using all those chairs, why not just place one chair 6 feet away? Seems like a waste of chairs.
Yeah, but then like, you know, if you're with a significant other, or if you're with your family, like that just gets really weird right off the bat, which I'm sure they're probably trying to discourage anyways. But the point that I'm making with this though is I think it's going to be like that for a while, and the places that try to go back to normal too fast are going to get a lot of flack. You know, I think the bar that says, you know, when you're allowed to have people standing at the bar, I think some of the places that are like, okay, well, the governor said we could be normal again. Here we are normal. A lot of people are going to be like, McKinley's Irish Pub on 42nd Street went back to normal and they're killing people.
What?
Well, personally, if California right now were to drop all restrictions, they're not going to because they're taking this seriously, unlike Texas and Missouri. If they were to go back to 0 restrictions, if there were a bar or restaurant that had that, me as someone who is not yet eligible for vaccine and takes this seriously, not because I suffer terribly from it. I'm 31, relatively decent health. My risk from coronavirus is the annoyance of having to stay inside for 2 weeks and having to like order groceries or have friends get it for me because I won't go out. That's my risk for it. Having said that, if there were a restaurant that had 200 people inside and people standing at the bar shoulder to shoulder, I wouldn't go there. That's me.
I probably would. Although there was
look
one
at Florida.
time I was on a subway or something like that, and I was around a whole bunch of people, and I was like, "Fuck, like this actually doesn't feel comfortable." But yeah,
don't
I
like
mean,
it.
but Florida for the most part was normal. I traveled to Mexico in October, and that was just normal. And again, I wasn't in fear for myself. I did not think I was, high risk. And that's another thing I have in my notes here is that people who are high risk, like they should have used this time to do some serious reflecting and been like, look, I could really just die because I'm 40 pounds overweight, or like I need to. And I'm not.
Why
saying
did I
somebody-
let myself get to 85?
I was just gonna say, not somebody who's 80 years old, but
Why was
somebody.
I born with asthma?
But no, but there's a lot of people who are just out of shape, don't take care of themselves, and a lot of the people that take care of themselves much lower risk. So it's a matter of taking care of your body.
Yeah,
taking
but
care of your
also
health.
the Chinese doctor who was the whistleblower on this that said, "Hey, this is an issue." He was like late 30s, early 40s, and he died in like April.
Early on in the coronavirus, and this is actually the picture that made me realize that it was really serious. It was a picture of a male nurse in San Francisco, and it was a before and after picture of him. And the before picture, the dude was probably like 6'1", 6'2", and like 240 pounds, and not like fat at all, just jacked, and like not a dude that you would want to fuck with. Looked like he was in great shape. And then there was a picture of him like 2 weeks later where he was down to like 145 or 150 pounds, and he had just gotten out of like a cancer ward or something. And it was what coronavirus did to him. And you look at the first picture and you say, of all the people that I can think of, this dude is about the lowest risk I can imagine.
Sure, but my thinking is you have to figure out where that line is in your life where you're willing to take the risk and live.
Well, he was a male nurse. He didn't have a choice.
Okay, but for the rest of the population, you got to figure out, where do you think you lay in the risk pool, and are you still going to try to behave like normal? It's just like driving a car. There's certain risk, and you choose to drive or you choose not to. Obviously, it's a much higher risk of getting coronavirus and a much higher risk of something happening to you, but you have to figure out, do you want to people are literally committing suicide because of this, because they're miserable or they're lonely or they have too much anxiety or depression. So you have to figure out what you want to do and how you want your life to be.
I just thought of something that we haven't touched on at all yet because it doesn't directly affect us, but the effect that coronavirus had on education, where you're looking at some kids that have effectively lost 2 years of school.
Yeah.
We're going to see downstream effects of that for a while.
I think you made
Brutal.
a really good point. But yeah, not just missing 2 years in school, but you take somebody who's like 6 years old, who's going back to school when he's 8, some serious developmental years, and now you have somebody that should be able to read and write and do some math, that literally
Also the social development.
Well, everyone had a kid at Tamarack that had to stay back a year. You remember?
Yeah,
and there was something about their social development where they were still a problem the next year when they're dropped down into your class. They forced them to repeat one. Now we're doing 2 and expecting them just to be able to like stride over that gap of, oh shit, are they going to be graduating high school at 20?
Well, also that kid that stays back literally gets double the amount of social experience, in that amount of time or for that grade.
Social experience, but it's not always positive.
Yeah, dude, what, like, weren't you here last year?
Yeah.
How are you not good at this yet?
Shut the fuck up. And it's this negative feedback loop of, bullies bully for a reason because they feel insecure about other things. A lot of times in school, I found it was intelligence. The bullies were never in the grades of A and B plus club. They were always in the D- to. Well, why didn't you turn anything in this year?
Yeah, no, you're very right on that. But I think, on an emotional level, and I think a lot of, not just students, a lot of people were very negatively impacted, especially higher risk people who suffer from depression, people with bad social skills that like crave social interaction. These people really got slapped by this last year. And, and that's, for me, like I couldn't do that. I would probably be severely depressed if I just took it super, super serious and didn't go outside. And remember, I'm in New York City. So like my closest neighbor is a 4-inch wall away from me. So on both sides and across the hallway. You're in close quarters, walking through the corridors of the building in the lobby. So, but I'm not a dick. I wore a mask. I still wear a mask when I'm in elevators and in common areas and buildings, but I still try to live on life and get out and.
Well, what blows me away is just how much wearing a mask has become a political statement to some people.
Well,
There's a woman in Texas who in the last week has been arrested twice for refusing to wear a mask inside private businesses.
so here's let's explain this point, because a lot of people apparently are not getting it. You're right to wear or not wear a mask. There's no law require. Well, maybe were there actual laws that required you to wear a mask all the time?
In public,
State mandates.
State by state.
Inside closed businesses. Some places even said if you're outside. Inside closed businesses, you had to wear a mask inside any retail business.
So some states mandated that you must wear a mask.
in any
Pretty
public
much all
space.
pretty much all of them did,
At some
except
point,
for the
right?
Dakotas. Even Texas did, because on March 10th they said we're taking this statewide restriction away. Even Texas put this in.
Yeah, it was
They're
really
just
just
taking-
North Dakota that didn't.
But a lot of
Yeah.
They
people
also had really
saying-
shitty outcomes.
a lot of
Really?
people saying that it's their right not to wear a mask. Well, the thing is, if you come over to my house, you may have every right in the world, but if I ask you to do something and you don't, you're now on my property, so I can
I can ask you to leave.
And if you don't leave, I can call the police and they will escort you off the premises. You don't have a right to do something on someone else's property. And even though it's a Walmart, which may seem like public property, Walmart is not public property. Walmart is a private establishment.
It's a public space
Publicly held
in terms
company.
of public accommodations. They cannot discriminate if you're Black, if you're gay, if you're transgender, for any other class. You cannot discriminate, and you don't have any expectation of privacy there. I can take a picture of anyone in Walmart, and unless a Walmart staffer comes up to me and says, "You can't do that here," you can't say, "Stop taking pictures of me. This isn't a Walmart." No,
No, we're in public.
but they get to set the terms when you step onto their property.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like if you were to go to someone's house, it's not. Well, how would that work if you went into the White House?
Well, that's government property.
But that's not public property.
Well, it is public property.
But well, then where's
What's your question of how it works?
How
You
would
said,
you
how
have?
does that? If
Would
they
you
said
have to
so.
wear the mask? I don't know.
Yeah, it's
That
government,
was their
it's
policy.
government property, so they get to decide whether or not you have to the restrictions for entering.
And yes, Biden did say that as a mandate on interstate travel, you have to wear a mask. So the federal government does have federal control over federal properties.
Okay. Another thought I had was that for some people and for some families, it was actually pretty good for them because they got to spend some good quality time together without interruption. Although my thinking is also that that's got to get old pretty quick. Like it's nice for a couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks to be able to have dinner together. But when you force people on top of each other all the time, people get a bit resentful. And
yeah, like how am I going to see my hooker if my wife knows I don't have this late meeting at work? She can see me in the living room at the station. She knows I don't have a meeting until 7. How is this going to work?
Oh man, I don't know what to tell you.
I don't know. I don't have a wife.
Also, it's really hard for the hooker to do her job while she's wearing a mask.
That's true.
No,
Depends.
not
So
mine.
I got some other notes here.
Well, I just want to introduce something. I talked about this a little bit before, but the concept of a K-shaped recovery, where you're talking about some people did really, really well. So I kind of drew, and it's not that great, but if you imagine
Bring that
this
down a
is
little
like the
bit.
stock market,
Bring it down a little bit. Down a
I'm
little
covering
more.
up half of it.
Okay,
It's fine.
all right,
Justin's
that's
fine.
Okay. So like if this is the stock market normally, and then here is where the beginning of the coronavirus happens and everything tanks. And then X is like the recovery point. So like a normal V-shaped recovery is like we have a really bad event and then it's over and then everything comes back up. But like with a K-shaped recovery, you have some people do really well
Bring
and
it down
some
a little
people
bit.
continue to do really poorly.
Bring it down a
and-
little more for the okay, there you go.
And so I hadn't heard that term before the coronavirus, but basically that some people end up doing really, really well and some people basically never recover. It kills off entire industries.
Well, it's crushing my company. We haven't, and it doesn't look like we're going to get back to reality anytime soon. We're hoping we have a great summer, because the demand's going to come back. But when we took out loans and things like that, the government offered us loans. We were still under the impression that we'd be back in 2 months or so. So we took these loans out expecting that business would have some resemblance of reality 2 months later, 3 months later, when in fact, 6 months later, 8 months later, a year later, the business is nothing like, we're 30 something percent down where we were last year. And then we're 65% down in total revenue from last year because we're doing smaller deals. And it's a year later. So had I known that when we decided to take out loans and things like that, I might have just said, you know what? I don't know if we'll be able to pay this back. I'm not interested in taking the loan. So I understand completely what you're saying. And obviously there's some industries that did very, very well. And once things start getting back to normal, they're going to continue to do well and do even greater and greater.
Ironically, you work in real estate. I work in mortgages. My company had the best year they've ever had in 2020 because rates were so goddamn low. And guess what? The 1%, the 5%, the 10% who had the money, guess what? They just cut down their commuting costs. They're working remotely. They bought second homes. They bought investment properties because everyone else is getting evicted and they put in the moratoriums. But still, anything that was available on the market, James can speak to this.
When there's blood in the streets, buy land.
Yeah.
Yep, that's
so
very true.
My company had one of the best years they had ever had in 2020 because rates were stupid low. And the people who had money before this, they didn't lose any money. The top 1%, California, most of our tax revenue, like 40% of our tax base comes from the top 1% of the state. They made out very, very well over the last year. Their investments went up after the initial huge dip that we took in March. Everything's just been a skyrocket since
that
then.
Was a buy opportunity, and the smart investors bought in at a discount.
Yeah, that's very
our tax base in California has actually increased over the last 12 months because of the pandemic. The top 1% has made so much money that our taxes have actually, our tax base revenue has increased. But for the people that are working in food and bev, do you think the average server in California, average server probably makes 40 to 50 grand if they're working full time? They've been making how many tips lately doing drop-offs? And my opinion is if you're going out to a restaurant right now and ordering food, if you're not tipping 20% on your takeout order, stay the fuck home.
Yeah, but I was having a conversation. This is nuts about like all these fucking delivery apps. My thinking is, you get a pizza. That's $1 a slice. It's $8 for a pizza. Plus, you get it delivered for $5.
Where are you getting an $8 pizza?
Not California. Jesus fucking Christ.
But
30 for a 16-inch.
That's insane. That's insane. But my thinking is it's $1 a slice for cheese pizza. It's $1 a slice for cheese pizza. 8 slices is a pie. A lot of places in Manhattan do $1 slices, so you get a pie for $8. But let's say it's a $12 pizza or a $15 pizza. Then you have to pay a delivery fee. You got to pay tax on the pizza. Then you got to pay a delivery fee, which is also taxed. Then you have to pay the COVID tax that New York City is taxing people. And you still have to tip the driver. So your $12, $14 pizza ends up being somehow like $46.
And if you're ordering off of one of these delivery apps, like the restaurant is having to pay the delivery company like 33%. So if you order a $15 pizza from the restaurant, like the restaurant's only getting like $10.
High?
I think it is.
I don't know that it's that high, but you should.
I'd want to see that.
But I
do my very best to never use the apps unless they have like a stupid good like buy one get one sale, and then but when it comes out like I want 2 for 1.
But I mean, restaurants get by with they have a lot of overhead, so that they're very narrow margins on a lot of their deal. So the delivery apps just allow them to kind of wheel and deal and just get food out the door fast, but they're not making that much money on them.
No,
I was pretty much dead on.
Really? All right. But also, if you look at the prices on the delivery apps versus the menu on their website, usually it's an inflated price, which they should do. They absolutely should.
Yeah, well, I mean, they got to make that money back. All right, let's see. What else do I have here? Family
So
together.
here, hold on. Let me just, since I looked it up, I'm on Grubhub's official website. This is
Okay.
direct numbers directly from them. So marketing fee of 20%, delivery fee of 10%, processing fee of 30 cents, which on my example of an average ticket of $10 comes to 3.05%.
Average ticket's not $10 on Grubhub.
Nobody's
All
buying.
right, so let me just do a $20 ticket then.
30.
That also. I mean, if you're getting food delivered,
30,
like you're
30,
getting more than
30,
a sandwich
30,
and a soda.
Because as Justin pointed out, you get the $8 pizza that turns into $40. It makes more sense to buy more stuff, and it turns all right. You
Okay.
get $8 for 40.
We're arguing over the
25 for
smallest piece of
45.
this.
Okay.
20%
Yeah.
plus 10% gets you to 30%. That's
James,
fixed.
Do you know me?
Yeah.
Okay. So what at a
So I said
$30 order?
33% and it's 30%. I think I'm pretty damn good on this one.
Okay, yeah, but yeah, I think that's, and I think it's insane to prove your point. I want to bring up some other things that changed a little bit. How about elbow bumps?
Fist bumps are better.
So then you're touching hands, and then you touch the back of
But
your
you're
hand with
touching this
somebody
part.
else. Yeah, and then you do this.
I think the elbow's a more sanitary way.
Yeah, but it's awkward.
I just don't think you should do it. They're both fucking weird. All right, it's like when you go to give somebody a normal handshake and they want to do like this whole fucking thing. It's too much. Just shake.
See, I like the fist bump because you can't screw it up.
Well, but it's also weird.
That's what we've been doing in the office when we meet with clients.
Which is weird. You're not like it's very funny to me. I just can't.
Do you remember? Do you remember swine flu or avian flu? I was refereeing a soccer game, and one of the clubs instituted a policy where they wouldn't shake hands at the end. They would only do like elbows. And the other team was so furious about it. Like they wouldn't even line up to shake hands. Or I was like, why am I the referee? No part of the shaking hands at the end, but you still had to watch as a referee. Like you stand there and watch, make sure no one throws a punch that you have to report. It's like, why am I now the arbiter of politeness in soccer?
But we don't do that anymore. Like we don't watch the handshakes or anything. We as soon as the game's over, we're out of there. It's your problem now.
That's nice.
But yeah, think about where handshakes originate. It's a service of vulnerability.
To show you're not armed.
Exactly. So which makes you vulnerable. You're saying you don't have anything, and you're touching hands.
That's why lefties are so untrustworthy, because I mean they reach out to the right hands like, wait a minute. Gotcha.
But I just can't wait for shit to get back to normal handshakes. It's confusing. I don't want to elbow bump anybody.
Most of my friends are vaccinated, and I'm so happy about that because I don't see that many people. They work in the public, in agriculture, in education, in more agriculture, but indoor
agricultural education.
Well, more agriculture, but indoor agriculture in California.
Do they all work in offices?
No, one of my friends works from home. He works as the program director for a farm to table organization, helping family farms get access to different markets.
Let me ask you a question.
He meets with a ton of farmers.
His job during normal times, is it mostly office work? Are you saying he's
very little office work? He does a lot from home, and then he has a lot of on-site visits.
But even without Corona, he'd still be working from home.
Working from home, except for the 2 or 3 visits he would do per week, which he's still doing to the farms to show face and set up arrangements and work out deals and get contracts and grants.
Gotcha. Okay.
My other friend is an elementary school teacher. This is his second full year this school year. And he got like all of 6 months his first school year of in-person teaching. It's like, I just got my credentials and now they're making me do something that I never trained for.
Elementary school by Zoom has got to be insane.
Oh my God. I cannot imagine.
Does he want to go back to work?
He actually just started back in person this week. He was so excited for it. He could not stand doing the virtual classes. He's like, guys, this is not why I want to become a teacher. Wow. I need to be back in the classroom.
Let me ask this question.
Yeah.
We've talked about the things that have changed in the last year. What are the things that are not going to go back? What are the changes that happened in the last year that are going to be permanent, either completely or partially?
Remote work.
I think remote work is is going to be around to stay. I think a lot of stuff is going to be remote. That could be in an office, it could be at home, but I think
You're going to see
people are
offices
working from home.
downsizing because they don't need to spend $4,000 a month on this corporate lease when they only need to have a third of the staff inside. They don't need it. It's a huge overhead. If it's worked the last 12 months,
And it's
You
easily
have-
eliminated.
Well, look, I'll give you another one. Not make fun of, but I feel like people used to a degree make fun of Asian people for wearing masks, especially in New York City. You see everybody else walking around like normal, and this is pre-corona, and then you see an Asian person wearing a mask, and you're just like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? Now, and in the Asian culture, that's much more appropriate. In the Western culture, wearing a mask on a regular basis to go to Whole Foods, very strange. It's no longer strange.
Now it's normal.
In the U.S., it's not just normal; it's frowned upon, if not invokes violence when you don't wear a mask. So I think mask wearing is going to be around for a long time because it's been forced to be. It's been forced to be accepted. We lost our stream here.
in the same vein, even leaving out that other stream, the anti-Asian bigotry is going to be around for a bit. That's not going to go away lickety split. Once you get a group of people riled up about hating another group of people, that's not going to go away quickly. They have long memories, and there is a lot of really, really disturbing anti-Asian violence right now.
It's wild. It's so fucking weird. It's
so fucked. And it's fucked is that the two biggest things you've seen lately are in New York City and fucking San Francisco. Like, god damn it, I thought the blue states were supposed to be better about this shit. You'd expect to see this in
Well, there's also Atlanta.
Yeah, that's, don't mean to say this word, but kind of a trump card. All right, 2 people getting spit on, 8 people shot. Okay, fuck, you got me. Yeah, that. Atlanta's a tragic. And the police chief, well,
he was having a bad day.
He had a really bad day. What the fuck? And then the reporter's like, hey, this is kind of weird. We should check this guy out. Ooh, he said some bad things. They found his Facebook. As soon as they asked him about it, deleted. No, you don't realize we screenshot that. We still have it.
The police chief had some stuff that he said before that was not good.
It wasn't the police chief. It was Lieutenant Sergeant Gray, and he's a communications officer. Check it out. It'll be easier for you. It's there.
Well, look, just so you guys know, our stream is back up, but we dropped the stream for about 90 seconds there. But to recap what you guys just said, for anybody who was off, you were talking about what happened in Georgia. The guy
Atlanta.
Atlanta, Georgia. He went in and he shot up. What was it? Several?
I think 3 or 4 different massage parlors and murdered 8 people. I think 6 of them were workers at the different establishments, 2 of them customers, clients that were just randomly there. That said, you know what? It's a Wednesday. I'd like a massage. I'm going to treat myself, and you end up fucking dead because you know what? In Georgia, it took him less time to buy this gun than it would have if he were a woman and wanted an abortion.
You also read the Slate piece.
Yep, and that's pretty fucked.
Well, okay, yes, that is fucked. I completely agree with you. But what you said was the police chief said what did he say exactly?
Communications officer.
The communications officer. I've got everything here. After describing what happened, like with this dude who got arrested and admitted to doing what he did, the communications officer said, "Yeah, we think that the suspect he just had a really bad day."
Okay. Now do you have the audio of that?
Let me see if I can.
Or the video, because the thing is, now we're giving this communications officer a hard time. Like, you got a fucked up. Are you playing it? You got a fucked up guy that had a bad day. Like, that could be the trigger. That could have been what put him over the edge. But I don't see why we're giving this guy a hard time for saying that. I mean, obviously the guy had a bad
Because he murdered 8 people, Justin. I think if you're going to say someone had a bad day, which is sounding like you're sympathizing with him, maybe
but that's
say like
now but
the
that's my
families
point is
of the lost.
you're reading into sympathizing. I don't necessarily think he is. I just think that's how a lot of people are interpreting
Okay,
him.
what is his job?
Well, fair enough.
Communications director.
Fair enough.
If that's the communication he's giving out, well, this murderer had a bad day.
Okay, hold on.
Look, I had a bad day the other day when I blew a tire. I didn't murder 8 people.
All right,
James.
I found here's the clip. Is there a way that I can screen share or like play this for everybody? It is wild.
Okay, can we
Scroll down? You have a share screen green button.
Yeah, try to
hold on. Let me send you the link to this or all right.
No, you got it. You can do a shared screen.
You can do it. You can do it. Come on.
Host has disabled participant share screen sharing.
Never mind.
How to undo that?
Yeah, so I can't.
Okay, now
do it in
try
chat
maybe.
And just don't bring it up.
No, well, try to share. See if you can.
There we go. Can you see?
No. Oh,
it's coming. Yeah.
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
Here we go. I'm gonna shut up.
Volume up.
Yeah, we need that audio here.
It's not working.
All right, guys, hang tight. James is about to show us this Twitter feed.
I don't know how to share the volume or whatever.
Adjust your audio recording on the computer, or maybe pull your headphones.
James, if you go to the bottom left where you have the mute button, if you go to select a microphone, click same as system. There's a little up arrow.
There we go. Okay, here we go.
All right, we think we got the audio here. You got to bring that volume up. We can hear it. You just got to bring the volume up. I can't hear this.
He was pretty much fed up, and he had a really bad day, and this is what he did.
Okay, but I think what he might have been getting at is that it wasn't so much racially motivated, although
but come on, man, you're the communications director, and you say, yeah, he was pretty fed up, and he had a really bad day. Like, when I've been fed up and I had a really bad day, I leave work early and like buy a bottle of liquor and then like have a couple shots and take a nap.
Well, you know what? You know who else had a bad day was this communications director. Okay, all I'm saying is he doesn't. We shouldn't be taking. He said some shit, but I just don't know why there's so much attention. The attention shouldn't be off of the main guy doing what he did and on this guy for saying some dumb shit. All right, like that's where our society is now. Is that like probably this guy's going to be fired or canceled because he said some dumb shit. And maybe
it's your job to say smart shit.
But everybody has a bad day, and they don't shoot shit up. All right, sometimes they just misspeak. But again, I don't know this guy. That's why I wanted to see and hear the audio.
Here's the issue, though, is that they did some digging and they found a post on his Facebook where he has a shirt, and the link I have doesn't have a picture of it.
Wait, the cop guy does?
But has
the cop guy does?
Yes.
Okay.
Quote from The Hill: Baker has also faced criticism for allegedly creating a Facebook post in March of last year that read, "Place your order while they last," along with a photo of t-shirts that said COVID-19 imported from China, spelled CHY-NA, to line up with the way that orange nincompoop would pronounce it, because I'm sure he can't read, so they did everything phonetically for him. And it's just really disturbing, because you have this huge issue of how many of the people that have been charged in the January 6th riot and insurrection are fucking law enforcement officers. And if you have white supremacists and racists and people that are trying to overturn democracy as the people that are enforcing the laws in local jurisdictions, that's really fucking scary. So yeah, this Baker guy.
Not if you're white.
No, not if you're white, unless you're gay or transgender or lesbian or hold a different view from them. UC Davis, 10 miles down the road, Remember back in 2010, the picture they tried to scrub from the internet forever and ever and
The
ever
casual pepper spray.
of the really, really fat guy who, look, if I stole something, oh, I'm getting away. He's not catching me. I'm in shit shape, but he weighed 280 pounds. He did not work out. Why is he a cop? I'm sorry. But yeah, just him spraying a huge string of protesters sitting on the sidewalk with their hands
behind their
in
back.
their laps or behind their backs, but obviously not a threat.
Yeah.
And you compare that to how these fucking white supremacist protesters get treated with kid gloves. It's bullshit.
They get served organic food in prison.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, fuck Jacob
guys,
Chansley. I'm so happy he's still stuck in jail.
The judge smacked him down too.
Because he lied during his CBS interview. Sorry, we really despise these people.
I know. We're signing off. Is there anything you guys wanted to add as we wind down here?
Ugly people keep wearing masks.
Get your vaccine if you're eligible. Don't cut the line if you're not. That's not cool. But as soon as you're eligible, get it.
All right, guys. I will catch up with you guys later. I'm going to bring us offline here.
We'll stick on air for a minute.
Yeah, stay online. Stay on air. I don't know how we lost people the first time around, but that kind of sucked here.
It's
I was on the podcast, so I have a pretty good idea.
How did we lose people? Well, they were listening in the first place. So
well, Justin, here's your biggest problem having the two of us on is people can handle one Jew. You start adding two Jews in, that's when people start turning out.
Well, you guys
they didn't know that
you're still a little alive here, so
that's okay. I stand by it. They didn't know that the Three Stooges were Jews. They actually made fun of Hitler about a year before Charlie Chaplin did his major thing with the dictator. That's not the name of it, but you know what I mean.
We gotta get this tighter. I feel like we gotta get the formatting a little tighter, and we have to. I don't know. We definitely have to keep up the cadence of what we're talking about, and speed up any stories that we get into.
Better preparation is key.
Say that again.
Better preparation.
Yeah,
key. Knowing what we're talking about, knowing how much time we have to dedicate, and say, hey, you've got here, write out one page of blurbs that you want to get out tonight. Make sure you get those out. Anything else, you're responding to someone else's blurbs.
The better podcasts I have notes.
Actually.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's good. But then also the issue is like sometimes, I have difficulty coming up with topics. So I think what we should maybe do is at some point over the next month is sit down and brainstorm some topics that we can do a little research in advance rather than a 1 or 2 day advance.
Could you do James and I a big favor and just you're curating your entire collection of the videos you have, just like broad stroke categorized like what you've already covered? Could you send that to me and James? And that way we can see like, hey, what soil haven't we turned up yet? Because I haven't watched all of them. I came in a month ago.
Well, this was what, 86 we did today?
Yeah, 86.
But also, what's very difficult for me is getting all the logistics set up, and it's actually really stressful because I don't have now. At least I have a dedicated computer in the basement with a ring light and a second monitor and a mic and a camera, and for the most part, you guys are like, instead of me talking to you guys on this screen, but the camera's over here and the light's coming from here. So I have that, but then also like, I'll show you my setup. Hang on. I've got this phone pointed at our live stream here, and that's what goes to TikTok. And then I'm looking at you guys out here with the camera mounted to this screen.
Wow, you're really in like a dungeon.
So one week,
What the fuck is with that chair?
that's Morelli's chair, and then we got some gym equipment over here. It's actually a decent amount of it, which is pretty cool.
The chair really doesn't fit.
Well, over here, what we're gonna do, I want to put. You can see where all these boxes are.
Is there a body underneath that pile? I feel like that's how I would hide a body quickly. Shit, I got a lot of stuff from Amazon this week.
Nobody wants to go through it.
No, who does? It's such a pain in the ass.
But the basement's actually really big, and I want to put a bar on that side, basically across from me, and then like a little area for TV and stuff, and then kind of keep a bit of an office / podcast setup over here. But like just having, I'm using my phones, everything gets moved and shuffled around. So I got to figure out the logistics of actually broadcasting and recording. So that part is very tough and stressful for me. But I got to run because I haven't seen Morelli all day. We got home and I went right down here to get started on this. So let's talk, over the next few days and try to collaborate a little bit, and figure some things out. But again, I think it's what we're saying will be better if it's not rehearsed, but like we collaborate a little bit more on the topic and we have an idea of what we want to talk about. And I also want to do like an intro where I don't have to like introduce you guys each time, where we have like a pre-recorded intro, something along those lines. Have you, David, where do you catch it? On Facebook or on YouTube or somewhere else?
When I was watching before, you'd bring me on regularly would be your Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I have an Instagram for my art business side piece thing, I get the notifications there.
Okay. Because the post-production is really kind of where I want it to be at, and that's the YouTube and the Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, we need to get on YouTube Live. That'll be a much better platform.
Well, that's hopefully with this OBS, I can figure that out. But
no, because there's a couple times I actually had a really hard time finding the stream.
Well, and it's not
because I didn't have Instagram.
It's not only meant to be watched live.
I know, but for me, knowing the two of you,
oh yeah, you would, yeah,
personally, as I do, I don't want to watch it later. That's gonna be old hat for me, because I feel like I've probably already talked to at least James about it after the sense, and it feels weird watching something that was live that you heard about after the fact. So for me, on Tuesdays, if I'm free, I try to tune in. My phone alerts me. This Tuesday, I had some errands to run.
Okay,
that's a lot.
What is that, like 3 pounds of those?
2 ounces.
How long is that going to last you?
Time is any indication, maybe 2 months, 3 months, 3 months.
Jeez.
And it's $125 an ounce, so it's really not that bad. And it is, I mean, helps me really fun stuff like come on, like this.
Interesting.
It's not everyone's thing. I get it, but I like it, and some people have already paid money for it. And James, do you remember mom's student Danny?
Yeah, she's cute.
Yeah, really cute. You're older than you, Bond's 3 years younger than Julia, so I feel like I still have a chance.
Married.
Yes, details. She wants to buy some shit. So,
well, that's another thing.
She knows people. So.
I got to get your details so I can include it in the description of the episodes.
Cool, because we can also use that as part of my that can also David Boswell, political scientist, financial analyst, artist,
psychedelic artist.
Exactly. All right, guys, I gotta pee because I'm now drinking 4 seltzer water. So,
oh,
Um,
Oh,
How
you
are
got
your
the-
drinks? How
What's that?
were they?
Yeah, honestly.
Honestly,
they
how
want.
were the
It was
drinks?
really sweet. It wasn't bad at all. But I'm gonna piss my pants, guys. So I will.
Well, let's keep them on the line then. This would be hilarious.
Goodbye.
Yeah, tell me about how you want to pee your pants.
Goodbye.
No. I want to hear about how.
Thank you for making it this far. I appreciate that very much. What I would appreciate a tad bit more if you don't already like and subscribe to this podcast. I would truly, truly appreciate that. But I owe my biggest thanks to you already, because if you're listening, you probably do. And I do thank you for that. I'll see you guys soon.
I like PBR. I just got priced out of it.